today is all about manifestation. So we're going to be adding to the journal writing that you've been doing every morning. What we're going to talk about is intention setting. And I think it's important just to pull back for a second and kind of go over what we've done up to this point. And there's the method to the madness is like, it's a morning routine, the Awaken Life formula, right? To like drink water, get hydrated, start moving the body, start meditating, and start journaling. And like, there's so many good things that are happening within it. But if you look at like this, like manifestation and intention setting and like setting goals and like taking your life in the direction of your dreams and moving incrementally towards it, like it's important. And this is what we're leading up to. But it's not even a question if someone's in pain. If like they're physically not feeling good every time they wake up, if there's an illness, a sickness, or some type of like injury or ailment that, or like maybe it's not like it's like a chronic injury, like not like injury, but like bad patterns and then chronic low back pain, right? And like, or like, my point is like, if there's something physical going on, it's hard to have philosophical questions because we're in pain. And what ends up happening is like the brain prioritizes like, man, you don't feel good. Like we need to fix that first because like death is more closely related to you not feeling good, being in pain. I don't care about chasing my dream if I'm in pain. And so part of the process is like, it is a physical experience. We are physical bodies. We talked about this in the very beginning. We're multidimensional. We're physical, we're mental, we're emotional. And we need to deal with like what's primary first. And that's getting our bodies feeling good, right? And so we do the movement that's required of us because of how we're made, the myofascial lines that I talked about last time. And so when we do that, we can correct bad patterns of posture, like in strengthening that which is weak so we can loosen that which is tight. And so we do that. Now, we also say like that's not just for the body, but it's important to have, we have these bodies, we want to feel good in them, and that's primary. Then we get into it also for the brain. Right? So the brain is awake in the morning so that we can meditate and focus our minds. Because with that ability, right? With that ability to focus and like direct the mind to one thing, right? It is so vital because of what it does, not just physiologically, because of, we talked about the stories that we tell and the sympathetic nervous system that gets fired all the time and the cascade of cortisol and adrenaline that gets dumped in the bloodstream and like the how it shunts the activities of all these other systems that are so vital for our health and well-being. So like even then, like what we do mentally is still a physiological experience, but what we're also doing is in our ability to focus our attention, we can gain more power to focus it on the things that we want to come into our lives. And this is what we mean by manifestation, is that we don't have just to be victims of circumstance and like, this is my lot in life and all the false beliefs that we have about like why we are where we are in our lives and it's a function of our past and it's a function of our upbringing. Like, no, it's not true. We can believe that, but we could also believe that, man, it happened, but it's being a catalyst for me to change my perspective, to take me in a different direction. And so it's really important just to frame this whole process in like the way that we designed it, which is get the body right, get your body moving, feel good in your body, like get the mind focused, right? Get the mind focused, not just for the physiological reasons of stress relief and like to not have chronic illnesses born from sympathetic nervous system overactivation, but also so that we can focus on the things that we want to happen in our lives. We can bring in our dreams and make them a reality. And so that this is what today is. Now again, none of that matters if we don't feel good. None of it matters if we're stressed out. Like literally, we can't even think if we're stressed out, right? Because like every other thing that comes into our like awareness seems like a burden and is heavy. We literally push all these things away because I'm like, I can't deal with another thing. So we got to deal with what's primary. Get the body feeling good. Get our minds focused so that we're not like stressed out. We're not on this low simmer all the time. Then we have the capacity to start focusing our attention on, man, if I am in charge of my life and I have this awesome power to create the life of my dreams and I'm actually already creating it, but maybe just not consciously yet, what does that look like to create it consciously? And so we're going to talk about this a lot. There's a whole process that's going to take most of Saturday, this coming weekend, to really unveil and to go through the whole training of it. But I wanted to touch on it now because it's going to be a good primer for you so that we hit the ground running when we set up for this weekend. And so it's what we call intention setting. Now, intentions and goals, like semantically, they're the same. But there is a big difference in like the orientation we have towards a goal versus the orientation we have towards an intention setting. And it really just, like, both of them are future events that we want, right? This is an intention, I want this at a future time in my life. Or as a goal, I want this at a future time in my life. The difference, and where it does make a difference in the way we approach it, is the way in which we get to one versus the other. And we'll talk about that more. But intention setting, all right, so here we have this goal. And what's really important is that, like, most of us, we frame what we want in terms of what we don't want. I was doing a coaching session with a friend, and it was like probably over a year ago. And I was asking her, like, so, you know, what is it that you want? I was like, my specific question was like, what is it that you want? And what she said was everything she didn't want. She's like, well, I don't want to be doing my current job. I don't want to be really doing it in the place that I'm at. I don't really like the people that I'm doing it around. And honestly, like what I'm doing, I'd love for it to be different. And I was like, that's a good start, but that's not giving the brain. Remember we talked about priming the brain to notice the things in your environment that will help lead you towards what you want? That's not doing anything. What that's priming the brain is literally to focus on the things that you don't want in your life. And that's akin to like, okay, I'm taking this boat out and I'm going to tell the captain, just make sure you don't go there and you don't go there and you don't go there. I don't want to go to Jersey. I don't want to go to Europe. I don't want to go to I don't want to go to South America. I don't really want to go to Africa. And he's going to be like, great, but that's not so you just want to drift? And this is what happens is when we only frame where we're going in terms of what we don't want, we end up drifting. And then other people start directing our lives and telling us what we should be doing. And most likely that's not in line with what our heart wants, with where we see the vision of our lives going. And so it's so important. This is what this whole training is about. It's just getting clarity about what it is that you want. Now, what's really important as you start clarifying that is the moment you, like, it gets crystallized in your awareness and in your mind. We're going to ask you actually to write it down. What ends up happening is you have to then be committed to deleting all of the other good things that you could be doing. There are trade-offs, an energetic trade-off of like when I'm committed to this, as I move in the direction, we call it shiny object syndrome, right? Well, this is a great opportunity. Well, that could be a great opportunity, but is it the best thing? Like the thing you're looking for? Because if we get distracted by it and we start investing time and energy in doing something that may be great, but it's not the best, what we end up doing is diverting our attention from the very thing that we're looking for. And this is really, really important because we've been mentioning it a lot. It's like it's kind of shaking our world right now, this book called Essentialism. And he just talks about like everything has a trade-off. Right? When you commit to one thing, like you have to have the courage to say no to the other things. John and I right now, like I don't know if you've seen it in the last lives that we did, we have like 7 sheets of like big paper. Like this thing is also like it's a big Post-it note, and we have all the things that we're doing right now. And there's like 6 events that are big that have like 10 to 15 to-dos underneath each of them. And what this year has been about is like, no, we don't want to do that anymore. We want to focus on this. We got really clear about this is the thing we want to experience in our lives. This is where we're going, which means all of these other great opportunities that we have coming up, we have got to say no to them because they will distract us, take our attention, our time, our energy, our resources away from the thing that we know is the best thing for us. And no one can tell you what that thing is. But it's important for you to get clear about it because if you don't, then literally the world will start directing you in ways and guiding you into positions of your life and maybe where you want to live, where you don't want to live, the job you have and the job you don't want to have, into areas that may not be your calling, your best, your highest good. And so the first thing with intention setting is clarity. And clarity just means, what is it that you want in your life? And you can frame that in a bunch of different ways. For us, like with values, it's like, well, you know, we talked about when we were saying like the declaration, well, this is how I want to show up for myself today. This is how I want to show up for my relationship today. This is how I want to show up for my service today. That's a form of getting clear about like the energy and the experience that you want to have in your day. But what we're talking about with intention setting is like a direction that isn't necessarily like it's looking a little farther down the road, right? Has more long-term vision than tomorrow. This is how I'm going to show up, and this is the energy, this is the experience, this is how I want to be tomorrow. This is like, okay, I have this goal in the future within 6 months or a year. And you may even say like within 3 years. After you go out too far, like it ends up being too hard to crystallize what is the process I'm going to take to get there. There may be some like 10-year goals, but for me right now, I'm looking 1 to 3 years in advance. And so with clarity, what we're saying is, what is that 1-year goal? Just pick one. And it could be for you personally, it could be for you professionally, it could be for you in a relationship, it could be for you with your kids, it could be like, that's totally up to you. We're going to go through this bigger process, but what we want to kind of get your minds going on right now is what is a goal that you have? And what I'd ask you to do is like just put a bunch of them down for right now. So what we're going to add to the journal for tomorrow morning is just write down a bunch of your personal goals and professional goals, right? So when I'm just saying just pick one, we're going to ask you in the weekend, we're going to like go through this bigger process, and we're going to ask you to choose one of those that you're like, yes, this is it, this is the one. But right now, we just kind of want you to brainstorm, get the mind going, get the mind primed on the things that you're looking for to happen within a year, within 3 years of your life. And so clarity is simply write down a detailed description of your goal. Again, I'm using goal. You can use intention. We're going to talk about the difference between them, but right now, just use goal. So I'm asking you to do, so this is the clarity. This is actually in the portion. We're going to say like, all right, write down a detailed description of your goal. Like that's it. And then what's going to happen is you're going to be like, oh, what do I want in my life? What a great question that is to ask us, that you take back, to reflect, to give yourself time, to give yourself space to get out of the doing of the day and to be in like a more reflective state. To be able like, okay, I have time and I have like an expansive imagination and I can see where I am and see where I want to go. And so really clearly write down a detailed description of a goal, not of your goal, but of a goal. And what I'd ask you to do tonight too, so this is going to be part of it, but also is, I should have put that, we'll put this as 1B. 1A is brainstorm your goals. Yeah, so as far as clarity is concerned, for tomorrow morning, the mission is brainstorm your goals. Write it down, just like really like, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to have this, I want to have that. Like put them all down. And then once you've got all those down, go through and be like, all right, this is the one I want to focus on. And then once you get it, just write down a really detailed description. What do we mean by detailed is get into this, like the senses. Like what does it feel like having that goal? What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it smell like? You know how we, like, our senses is how we take in the world? Like, were you to have that goal, like, imagine that you're already there in it, and just write down the detailed description of what that one goal looks like, feels like, tastes like, smells like, the experience of it. Like, just kind of visualize yourself in it, and we're going to talk about that more. But, so, brainstorm tomorrow morning all of these different goals, just write a bunch of them down, and then pick one of them and write down a really detailed description going into the senses. So the idea is visualize yourself there, take a few moments, and then just start writing down what does it look like, what does it feel like, all that stuff. This is literally this process that we're going to take you through, how Hot House Yoga came to be, how Yak Yoga Concepts came to be, how John and I manifested our wives into our lives. Obviously, they had free will. They could have done it or not. They could have said no, but like, honestly, they didn't. We crafted them with witchcraft. Like we threw in everything. This is who I want them to be. Yeah, yoga spells. Where we're living right now is a function of following this process. Where we're going right now, like we're about to launch a podcast, that is a function of this process. And so this is what we do. It's what we do and how we do it. So we're super excited to teach it to you. Anyway, that is it. That is day 11, manifestation. That is your mission. Brainstorm your goals and write down a detailed description of one of them. I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for being with us, and we will see you soon.